Today on the Oklahoma Joe's Smoke Lab, we're testing something weird. Something I've never tried before. Something that, if it works, might just give you the best bark of butcher paper and the moisture retention and speed of a foil boat at the same time. But to be honest, I'm not sure if this is genius or if I finally lost it. The one thing I would say is that Mo Kaysen does something similar to this. He half wraps in foil and then covers it with butcher paper. And some of my friends have started to do something similar to this method. So I might be onto something here, but we'll find out. Let's get smoking. Before we season, let's trim. I'm clearing the table, boom, using the official Smoke Lab scientific clearing stick, also known as a random hockey stick I got off Amazon for my kids. Safety first, we don't want junk mixing with our brisket. I've got 2 choice grade briskets, nothing fancy, just giving both a light trim, trimming off the edges, rounding out the flat, shaving the fat cap down to about 1/4 inch, taking off the mohawk, just a classic trim. Now 'tis the season, so let's season. Bottom side gets kosher salt and some Smoke Trails BBQ brisket rub, hitting the edges, then flipping it over, fat cap up, repeating on the top. And because I like supporting local people I know, we're finishing the top with some Kreiser Barbecue Old School rub. This stuff is really good and it scores really highly in the American Royal Rub competition every year. So remember, Kreiser Barbecue rub, not Chrysler Barbecue. This rub isn't going to break down on the highway. Kreiser Barbecue, get it, it's delicious. Outside at my Oklahoma Joe's Longhorn Offset, I'm loading up a bed of briquettes, dropping some cherry splits on top and hitting it with a propane torch because I like using propane torches. They're a lot of fun. Both briskets then go on, point to the firebox, flat towards the stack on the colder end of the smoker. Water pan goes in. We're smoking between 250 and 275 for the first 5 hours or so. 5 hours later, the bark is setting nicely, good color, small amount of fat cap rendering finally starting to form, not too much though. Water pan comes out, we don't need it anymore, and I'm bumping up the pit temps to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for the next 3 hours or so. 3 to 4 hours later, the bark is looking incredible, so it's time to wrap. For the first brisket, I'm wrapping with 2 sheets of butcher paper, spritzing it with water so it's nice and pliable. Then we are adding the foil boat to the mix, just covering the bottom half. The idea here is that we preserve the bark like paper because we're not allowing as much steam as we would in a full wrap of foil. We are also retaining juices because the foil will retain the juices and it'll braise the bottom of the brisket, helping it to cook more evenly and faster. And if you're worried about your barbecue coming into contact with aluminum foil and aluminum leaching into your barbecue, I don't really think it's a big deal, but some people worry about that, then this will eliminate that contact with the aluminum foil, but also get the benefits of the aluminum foil. For the second brisket, we're going full classic Texas crutch, heavy duty foil, double wrapped and locked tight. Both briskets then go back on the smoker at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Probes go in and it's time to roll the smoke on these briskets for maybe 2 to 3 more hours. 2 to 3 hours later, the hybrid wrap brisket is reading around 187 degrees Fahrenheit and the foil brisket is already at 191 to 192, so quite a bit higher. The brisket fully wrapped in foil is definitely cooking faster as expected. Once each brisket hits around 190 to 195, they are going into my holding oven at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for the next 18 hours. This is how I cook my briskets. Good briskets take time. All right, guys, time for the taste test. Let's start with the foil wrap brisket because I feel like this is the one that I am most familiar with. So we'll test this one and we'll see what the bark looks like. And then we'll compare it to the one that was butcher paper wrapped and then foil boated. Bark is looking really nice. Nice dark bark. It's not dissolved, it's not mushy. It is a little bit lighter in this area, so maybe the bark got a little bit more washed out, but it is quite well rendered. I can tell that it's very squishy right there in the fat cap. Very squishy right here. This is going to be a great brisket, I can tell already. So let's check out the other brisket. Now this one, the butcher paper one, only got up to around 185 before I put it in the warming oven, so I'm kind of concerned about whether it's done or not, but usually with the long hold, I put briskets into the holding oven at like 175 internal and they still turned out great. So not too concerned. This one might be a little bit less done than this one though. Okay, so remember how I screwed up on wrapping this thing? I didn't leave enough length to go all the way around twice. Well, that's actually helping me now because it's a lot easier to unwrap. All right, I'll give you guys a close up. So looking at this one, this is the foil wrapped one. Like I said before, the bark is looking really nice and dark. Isn't washed out, but it is, you know, kind of soggy in a way that it's not crispy. It's not as crispy as if we had left it unwrapped. But then if we look at the butcher paper plus foil boat, it looks pretty similar. Maybe a little bit darker, but you can still see that there's some brown discoloration here. Same on the flat with the foil. And, you know, usually if I do an unwrapped brisket, completely unwrapped, I can go like this and it'll make a scraping sound, but this you can tell it's a little bit soggy. Same with this one. It's the exact same kind of soggy texture, not crispy on either of them. All right, I think both of these briskets are going to be very similar, but let's slice into them and see if there is a difference. We'll slice this one right down the middle. Slicing like a dream. And of course, this is the Smoke Lab, so we got to do the obligatory brisket waterfall. Woo, look at that. Love it. All right, I just like to slice off some burnt ends here. I'll chop those up. Now I'll start making around 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit thicker slices. There's a lot of seam fat on this guy. I find that the bigger brisket you get, the seam fat is kind of disproportionately larger. That's why I like working with smaller briskets. The seam fat isn't as pronounced. But these are nice slices. The fat cap is fully rendered, nice and squishy. Really nice looking brisket, nice and tender. The more I slice brisket, the more I just like to prop it up against another piece of the brisket and then make the slices instead of just letting them fall down. Seems to be a lot easier. And let's see how it tastes. It pulls apart really easily. Really good brisket. I was worried that wrapping earlier at around 165, 170 would mean that we don't get as much rendering on the fat cap, but we got quite a bit of rendering on the fat cap, so I'm happy with that. Okay, brisket number 2, the foil boated and fully paper wrapped brisket. This one seems a little bit less done. I don't know about this one, guys. A little bit tough. Could have left this in the holding oven probably a little bit longer. Looks pretty juicy. Okay, let's take one of these ones. Less rendering than the other brisket, but still a squishy fat cap, still really edible. We'll pull this apart. A little bit tough, but not bad, not bad. Yeah, it's still really good. Can't taste any difference as far as the bark goes at all. So conclusions, if you're going to wrap, should you first wrap in butcher paper and then either wrap in foil or foil boat your brisket? Or should you just stick with the classic Texas crutch, which is just all foil? Personally, in my opinion, based on the results in this video, I would just stick with the foil. It cooks faster. The brisket that I cooked in the foil seemed to turn out juicier. And contrary to what I thought would happen, because theoretically butcher paper is able to breathe a little bit more than foil and there'd be less steam in the wrap, the texture of both briskets was identical. Neither of them was crispy. They had great bark, but still a little bit soggy as you'd expect when you wrap something. And the one that I wrapped in butcher paper didn't have any crispier bark than the other one. That's just what I found in this video. But what do you guys think? Do you prefer to wrap in butcher paper in a foil boat, or just the classic Texas crutch with foil? Let me know in the comment section below, and until next time, happy smoking.